All right, Friday feedback, the first post-election Friday feedback, riddled with various instances of blame and finger pointing. I want to evaluate some of it, sort of taking the temperature of people in the audience as to what happened here, what is to blame. There are some good points made, some not so good points made. I'll tell you what I find to be based in fact and what I don't. So let's start with To Blood, who commented on YouTube. Bottom line, Kamala hugged too many Republicans and unpopular Democrats like Clinton. They tried to pull moderate Republicans and zero of them moved. Meanwhile, potential Democratic voters did not want to vote for a weirdly war hawkish Hillary-style Democrat. The Gaza issue is part of it. The perpetual ineffectiveness of Democratic administrations failing to solve day-to-day problems that people are dealing with is probably one of the biggest parts. The only thing I agree with you on is men. Kamala ran heavily on abortion. It's a very serious issue, but the Democratic Party has in large part abandoned younger men, especially in the environment of the Tates, Pauls, podcast bros, etc. Yeah, there's some stuff here that rings true and some that doesn't. I haven't seen evidence that the focus on abortion hurt Harris. I haven't seen evidence that Gaza hurt Harris. I just haven't seen it in the data. I have seen evidence that there was just significantly reduced motivation to go out and vote for Harris in an environment where maybe some people didn't believe that a second Trump term would be as bad as some were saying. Here's another response. This is from White Dark 40 on the subreddit. Biden would have done better. The election's not over. Harris can still win. Okay, this was written when the results were still coming in. But the point here is Biden would be doing better. Did Joe Biden drop out? Is being Googled as we speak. His approval ratings skyrocketed after he dropped out. But that may be because he dropped out. He probably could have brought in more Pennsylvania votes. He would appeal to the more sexist, xenophobic centrists, etc. So listen, I don't know whether Biden would have done any better than Kamala Harris. Maybe he would have done a little bit better, maybe not. Certainly, there was not an indication when he got out, that he was going to do better. But what I can tell you is that given that the election was generically a referendum on how people perceive the direction of the country to be and how people perceive the economy to be, Biden being at the top of the ticket instead of Harris does not seem to me that it would have led to a better outcome for Joe Biden. I'm just not seeing it in the data. And I understand that a lot of this is sort of like gut feeling and emotion and how we feel and how we would like to feel and this sort of thing. But it just is not seeming to me like that is the case. Excuse me, no, says, the problem with the Democratic Party is that they know what the problem is, but are too afraid to admit it. Radical progressives are killing the party with their nonsense ideology. When you ask a progressive, what is a woman, but they can't answer for fear that they will be labeled homophobic, it's problematic. I disagree that this was an issue, and I'll tell you why. It has nothing to do with Kamala Harris as a candidate. Kamala Harris didn't participate in the what is a woman stuff. Kamala Harris didn't participate, whatever this person's talking about, whether it's gender stuff or whatever. Kamala Harris was criticized more for not doing enough of that stuff by some on the left, rather than for doing too much of it. So again, we're just exploring what people are saying is to blame. I think that Harris was arguably, I'm not saying necessarily, but arguably hurt as much from not kowtowing to that slice of the left than hurt for actually doing it. I didn't see any of that from her campaign. Rob Hernandez says, the moment Democrats stopped showing how weird the Republicans were and started hanging out with Cheney, begging for their votes, is when the election was lost. Republicans aren't going to vote for Republican light when they have the real thing, and that strategy suppresses the Democratic base turnout. I'm not sure about this either, and I'll tell you why. There are, based on exit polling, it's not just Republicans worried about crime and the border. While our solutions would be radically different, no doubt, as we spoke about with Congressman Greg Casar yesterday, there are many Democrats who are worried about the issues that Republicans bring forward. They just don't necessarily love Republican solutions. And so to me, it's, again, maybe I don't disagree that the full day of campaigning with Liz Cheney may not have been a good idea. But there are as many people criticizing Harris for being Republican light as there are criticizing Harris for not actually delving in a more systematic and forceful way into saying, hey, they have identified some problems over there, but here's how I would propose to solve those problems. That's what I'm seeing in the data. Cray Vegas says, so much for democracy, so much for a more equal participation in politics. David, you often say many things that are true and worth paying attention to. That said, you aren't perfect, and your wantonly harsh criticism of Jill Stein is proof of that. She's not a horrible person. She and other candidates exist to remind us that the American political system is in dire need of profound reform. Instead of bashing her as a spoiler, you should applaud the fact that she's still present, despite the abhorrent bullying she gets from status quo parties. Yeah, I just disagree. First of all, Jill Stein didn't play spoiler. This election was not close. Jill Stein didn't play spoiler in even a single state. I'm glad that her influence was diminished. I'm glad that because of that, we have the clarity to say, hey, you know what? The problem was tens of millions of people just preferred Trumpism, not that some tiny slice went for Jill Stein instead of Kamala. That's the greatest. If there is any relief here, it's, oh my God, Jill Stein cost Kamala 5 states, otherwise she would have won. Nope. We don't have to now consider that as the explanation. We know that it was much bigger than that. And so the most positive takeaway for me about Jill Stein is she got like 0.2% of the vote and didn't affect the results in any state. That's good news. Random Handle has the following view. Genocide lost her Michigan. It's disingenuous of you to ignore the impact of Gaza in the election. It wasn't the main reason she lost, but it was very significant. She let Trump pass her on the left as an anti-war candidate. Doesn't matter if it's only lip service, he said the right things. Completely wrong. So 2 things on this. Number 1, Trump didn't, on Gaza, Trump didn't surpass her as the anti-war candidate. Sure, Trump said, I'll solve Ukraine-Russia on day 1. Sure, Trump said, October 7th never would have happened if I were president, and it's just lip service, we know it. But Trump has said he would just let Israel finish the job. That's not anti-war. There's no interpretation of that is anti-war. Trump would have just said, go ahead and level Gaza completely. And if you don't like Harris's view on the issue, you would like Trump's even less. One other thing, I've looked at the numbers. The story was Michigan was lost for Harris because of Muslim voters displeased with her position on Gaza, and a bunch of them voted for Trump. Look at the margin in Michigan. I think it was like 70,000 votes, or it might even be more now. Look at the number of Arab Americans in Michigan. Look at the percentage that are voters based on about a 50 to 60% turnout, maybe even a little less. Look at the fact that by a small margin, they voted for Trump. And you very quickly come up with a really tiny number relative to the total margin in Michigan. So it's fine to say this. It's just not borne out by the facts, and it's not borne out by Trump's campaign rhetoric. Kudos King is coming in hot and says, you deserve to lose more than 5,000 subscribers. You led people in the wrong direction for years, and the proof is in the pudding, loss after loss. Until I hear accountability and contrition and a change of tactic, I don't want to hear anything else from you. You failed, and now we have Trump again. Well, a couple different things. Let's take it piece by piece. Thankfully, even though we lost like 15,000 subscribers, we also gained 13,000. So it's like minus 2,000 out of 2.6 million. It's not terrible. I think we're doing okay. Secondly, I led people to loss after loss. Trump barely won in 2016, and then Republicans lost everything since. They underperformed 2018. Trump lost 2020. The red wave turned into a slight blue increase. They lost off-year elections. They underperformed midterm elections. They lost everything. Yes, Democrats now got crushed. The idea that I, even as a minor character, have presided over loss after loss, it's just not borne out by the facts. And this kind of relates to the final one that I want to put here about predictions and estimates and all of it. 2991JM says, I am so mad at myself for believing you and that effing Alan Lichtman and Seltzer. Eff all of you. Totally unfollowing and will never listen to stupid pundits like you again. JM, I want to remind you of something. I'm speaking directly to you here. For months, I've been saying Trump's running stronger than he ran in 2020, and Trump's running stronger than he ran in 2016. I've been saying this for months, and the last 2 weeks I shut up about it because a lot of my audience didn't want to hear it. When I would say, folks, this doesn't look good. Trump's numbers are better than they are when he won in 2016. Some in my audience said, David, shut up. Give us a positive message. Tell us Harris is going to win. And it wasn't in the numbers. So I don't know what you're saying about believing me. I'm the one who's been saying Trump's numbers look better than in elections past. That all being said, if you want to make me the villain here and you want to unfollow me, I understand. It's a tough time. It's been a very tough week. What I hope is that after the dust settles, we realize that when Republicans lose, they go back and double down on let's get involved. If we lose and say bye-bye, then we are just going to lose again. I don't want that. I don't want that. So we'll have the bonus show today. You can sign up at joinpacman.com. The forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, which includes an explanation of how things like what happened this week happen, has jumped in pre-order to the #1 democracy book on Amazon and the #2 fascism book on Amazon. I would be honored if you pre-ordered this book anywhere. You can call your local bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Audible, anywhere you want, Kindle. Let's go to the drawing board. We've got some time. And we are going to come back, I believe, stronger and more prepared than ever. So we'll see you on the bonus show. And then, of course, we'll be back on Monday. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine. And in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, The Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate. Head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.